to Inside the Lines Live. I'm Lizi Scott, managing editor at Tallapoosa Publishers, alongside Scott Hardy, and we are back. The Dream Team has returned for the Benjamin Russell quarterfinal against Pike Road, which is happening tonight at Martin Savarese Stadium. Getting ready here. Kickoff is in about 1 hour, and we're getting excited.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be back. It's been a little while since the two of us have had an opportunity to do the show, but tonight's matchup against Pike Road presents a great opportunity to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been 8 years, I believe, since Benjamin Russell was in the quarterfinals, and obviously you can speak better to kind of what this means to the community. So just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually only the second time in school history that Benjamin Russell's hosted a quarterfinals game.
Oh.
And generally speaking, so you go back, so 97, 2000, 2001, and 2015, and this year, that would be the only opportunities the Wildcats have actually been to a quarterfinal game. So the Wildcats looking for that opportunity to advance to the next round, and it's been a lot of community support, and we're hopeful that the Wildcats can bring out a great crowd tonight. Obviously, with it being Thanksgiving, a lot of people home for the break, so we're hopeful that a lot of former players and alumni will come out and support the Pride tonight.
Obviously, you've been around the team a little bit more this week than I have, so tell me kind of like what the preparation has been like how do they stay calm for this kind of game? Like, this is a totally weird week, school's out. I mean, what's kind of the vibe?
Yeah, it's always weird when you have, school's out and you have, shortened days, or they have to come to the school. It's not, set on schedule. And as a coach, you kind of want to keep things in rhythm. But this is a team really that thrives on adversity. And so, not that this is necessarily adversity, but shifting of schedule. So they had an opportunity this week to have a little post-practice meal, and gave an opportunity for the quarterback club to feed them. And so appreciate all the parents and supporters of the program. They're allowing that to take place. But very calming, actually. Coach Grider seems to be somebody who never really gets too high, gets too low, and thrives in these situations, and I think that feeds down to the team.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because even though the Wildcats haven't been here, right? He's been coaching for forever. I mean, he's been, in these big games many times before, and so he can kind of keep that level head, like you said, across the board. And hopefully that will trickle down to the players. It's weird because people talk about how exciting it is to be able to practice on Thanksgiving, which you think of Thanksgiving, a holiday, you want to be off, you don't want to be doing anything, but it is cool. It's Thanksgiving week, and we're still here, we're still alive.
Everybody wants to be practicing on Thanksgiving.
I know, right?
If you're playing football, you want to be practicing this time of year, which means you're having an opportunity to play a playoff game and move on to the next round. And the Wildcats haven't had an opportunity to do that in quite some time, since Tyree Gray's team that played Bessemer City and ended up, I think that was 30-13. The Wildcats won that game and went down to Spanish Fort and played them in the semifinals. So it's been a while, but there's a lot of I think this was the expectation of the team, though. And so, they had the couple losses early on, but for the most part, I think everyone assumed that this was a team that had the ability and the coaching staff to make a run, and as things are turning out, it appears that they have.
Yeah, and before we dig into reviewing the season a little bit, I do want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here tonight. We have sponsors from Tanology, S&S Discount Tire Pros, Vice Motors, Chick-fil-A of Alexander City, and Marsha Mason, attorney at law. So we're really appreciative of you guys. All of those people that we mentioned have been really supportive of this team, as well as youth sports, athletics in general in our community. So we appreciate them, and we appreciate you guys being able to bring us that. With that being said, I do want to talk over the season just a little bit, and it looked like, there was a lot of hype when we went into the season, right? Everybody thought this is the year. It was Smitty Grider's second season, obviously with Malcolm and Gabe as seniors. A lot of hype going into that. What happened there in the beginning? Do you feel like it started out with those two losses, it went 2-2, and then from there everything changed? What do you feel like happened after those two losses?
Honestly, I think it was one of those situations where they had heard a lot about themselves going into the season, a lot of preseason talk, a lot of building up of what this team could accomplish, but until you actually get on the field and start running plays and start playing against teams that aren't your normal teammates that you see throughout the preseason, then it doesn't really matter. And so I think that they got humbled a little bit.
Yeah.
And just truthfully, they started getting their best players the ball. And if you look at prior to after the Homewood game, so that was 4 games in, I think Malcolm Simmons had 20 touches, and he had 6 touchdowns during that time. So, and that's including kickoff and punt returns. In actuality, just taking that out, I think he had 13 touches for 6 touchdowns. So, if you want to be successful, obviously, especially at the high school level, you get your best players the ball. And once they decided to figure out more ways to get him the ball, didn't have to get as creative. And I credit that to Coach Krager understanding, you know what, I've got some stallions, and I just need to let them do their thing. And it appears since that time, the Wildcats really have bought in and understood that they didn't want to waste opportunity, that a lot of teams would love to have this type of talent, and they don't want to look back and say, you know, what could have been. And so I think that really was a major catalyst in moving the team forward.
And I agree. Just watching them, it looked like, you know, a lot of defenses obviously were keying in on Malcolm Simmons and always are going to, but it looked like the Wildcats sort of strayed away from that because of that. And obviously we've seen that Malcolm can make plays in traffic. He can make plays when he's being double and even triple teamed. And like you said, to take advantage of that is really important. But also I think to get some of these other offensive weapons going to really solidify that it's not just Malcolm Simmons, it's not just Gabe Benton, but you've got, you know, Sadarian Morgan and Chris Foster and guys like that are taking some of that pressure off of the star players, if you will.
Oh, absolutely. I think that the emergence of, especially, you know, toward the latter half of the season, Lawson started to really pick up. You started to see TJ really be somebody that could carry the team if needed be. And Coach Grouder mentioned it last week. This offense is really at its best when Chris Foster is available and able to make plays. He opens up so much, and that allows people like Lawson and Morgan and obviously Malcolm to be able to make those type of plays. But just rewinding a little bit, I do want to talk a little bit too about just how this team matured throughout the season too. You think about a defense that lost 8 seniors last year, and so it was going to take a little while. Defensive line had 2 freshmen starting, 2 sophomores in the secondary, so it was going to take a little while to get acclimated and understanding, you know, that this is big boy football, and we've seen what that has been able to do. People like Noah Long and John Hicks obviously will go down as probably one of the leading tacklers in school history, and so I just think that in combination with what we've seen from Gabe the last 6-7 weeks, the way he's been playing makes it very difficult for teams to compete with us offensively. And so if you give our defense just enough, I think that puts us in a great position to win.
And
puts the Wildcats in a great position. Excuse me.
I know we say we too much, don't we? You know, also speaking of maturity, you look at Gabe and just his game and how early on, especially in that Homewood and the Clay Central game, you look at, you know, one bad play sort of really snowballed and things just sort of untangled on him, and I don't feel like he has quite that mentality anymore where it's one bad throw or he gets sacked or something and he can much more easily overcome that than he could early on in the season. I think that shows his growth over the course of the season as well.
Yeah, and we talked about Coach Grouder's, you know, even kill mentality. I don't think I've ever seen a player exhibit that, especially at the quarterback position, the way Gabe does. And you see it kind of translates to him being a pitcher on the mound. He's somebody who commands the big moment, and so that, you know, correlates to his team kind of taking that same mentality as well. So Gabe's really been a superstar. He's got 2,600 yards passing on the year, and really could have more than that. They just haven't had to do as much. A lot of it was a lot of big plays, but the Wildcats go as Gabe does, and we saw a little bit of that last year where if he wasn't having his best game, it kind of slowed things down a little bit, but he seems to be peaking at the right time. And as we say, you know, everybody wants to be practicing this time of year, where everybody wants to be playing their best ball this time of year, and the Wildcats are definitely doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, let's take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back and we'll discuss kind of Pike Road and what to expect this evening.
Hey Tallapoosa County, my name is Samantha Himes. I'm the new Audience Development Manager at Tallapoosa Publishers. At its core, my job is to help the community access the local news, whether that's in print, online, or this great live stream you're watching now. I believe that being aware of what's happening in your area is vital to a thriving and healthy community, our community. Newspapers serve as unbiased sources of information that you as citizens can use to demand change when it's needed, celebrate milestones and victories, and even mourn and heal as a community when tragedy strikes. The newspaper tells your story, your community story, and gives us all the tools to write the next chapter. Subscribing means you don't miss a thing, so stay informed, get involved, and make your story a great story. You can give me a call at 256-234-4281, email me at samantha.himes@alexcityoutlook.com, or you can go online at www.alexcityoutlook.com to subscribe. Thanks!
Welcome back to Inside the Lines Live. I'm Lizzie Arbogast-Gwynn alongside Scott Hardy. I'm so excited to be back. It just feels good to be back on the field and back in the game and
feels like it adds some legitimacy to the game as well. It feels.
Do we do that?
Well, at least I do. I don't know, but no, I'm just kidding. I think this program was something, obviously, that was a major catalyst for the progression of a lot of things that we were able to do from a sports wide. Talked about it, was award-winning, so it is great to be back. And anytime we have an opportunity to talk sports, you and I are going to take that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we do that, we do want to thank our sponsors again, Tanology, as well as SNS Discount Tire Pros, Vice Motors, and Marcia C. Mason, as well as Chick-fil-A of Alexander City. Let them take care of your catering needs for the Iron Bowl tomorrow. Auburn or Alabama?
Who's going to win?
Yeah.
Oh, Alabama's going to win.
Oh, okay,
but,
good.
The Tigers will put on a good fight. It'll be at home, or by being at home, it won't be a blowout game, but I don't see it being a close game either. So we'll see
Roll
how
Tide.
it goes. Wow.
Wow. How the mighty have fallen.
Seriously?
Anyway, we're here at what's more important, the Benjamin Russell Pike Road quarterfinal Class 6A HSA quarterfinal game. We also have Reeltown playing at Cottonwood, which is down by the Panhandle, I think. We've got Henry Zimmer, our sports editor, down there. Reeltown they're in familiar territory. They're used to being here a little bit. What do you expect out of the Rebels down there in the unknown? They always seem to face these odd teams.
Whoever the coach of the Wildcats is, I'm always going to support whoever that is. And I love Smitty Grider, and that's my guy. But I think Matt Johnson is one of the best coaches in the state, and he runs a top-tier program. And with all of the expectations that he had when he took over this job, taking over for Jackie O'Neal and being a former player and understanding the tradition, all he's done is continue to win. The only thing he hasn't done, he hasn't got that state championship.
I know.
But, a couple years ago, he would have thought that may have been the one. But things happen from time to time. But I think this year's team has the capability to do so. I think they do get a win tonight. And if things hold true, as many people think, they'll set up another matchup against B.B. Comer next week.
Yeah. And after B.B. Comer, had a hard time with Highland home. Reeltown might be looking like the favorite or close to the favorite, at least to make the state championship. So anyway, we are rooting for the Rebels afar from up here. But we are here for the Pike Road at Benjamin Russell game. Pike Road is a fairly newish school, right? They've only been in existence for 4 or 5 seasons now, something like that.
Roughly in that time.
But they've been a top-tier program since they came in. They won a state championship in 2021. They were Class 5A then. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So they've moved up, obviously, since then. Really high-power, explosive offense. Like you mentioned, 2,600 yards for Gabe Benton. Freshman quarterback Kason Myers, I believe his name is, has 2,100 yards for Pike Road. So, we could see a bit of a shootout here.
Yeah, and truthfully, I like the odds for the Wildcats if it becomes one of those games. If it's a low-scoring game, that scares me a little bit because it means the offense isn't necessarily playing that well. And for a team that kind of relies on that, the Wildcats would really want to be putting up some points. But Pike Road, as you said, has been a very successful program since its inception, and winning a state championship a couple years ago and now moving up to 6A and really continuing to do what they always have done, which is win, and had a big win last week on the road against Spanish Fort. At home against Spanish Fort. But to the chagrin of many, but we were excited to not have to travel down there. But Pike Road, again, a team that really, from a defensive standpoint, too, can cause some havoc. But if it becomes a quarterback versus quarterback type of game, I do trust number 3. But obviously, they've done enough to get to this point, and you can't count anybody out and what they're able to do. But the very athletic across the lines, which could cause some havoc for us. But I think they're similar to what we saw against Briarwood. Could cause some havoc for us from the defensive line, but maybe not as big. But Malik Blockton, Auburn commit, somebody who really has a motor and could cause some issues. But I do like the Wildcats to be able to try to utilize their playmaking abilities tonight.
Yeah, and I think it's also, we talked about the defense and how they've come on so strong. And I think it's going to be really important that they stay very disciplined, read their keys, that kind of thing, because I think that being that Pike Road likes to pass the ball so much, it's one big play and it can be a touchdown, which is the same for Benjamin Russell. So I think that's familiar, but it's really going to be about keying in on those and making sure that there aren't any, giant plays.
Yeah, and, talking about last week's game against Spanish Fort, they were down 17-0 and came back and scored 31 unanswered. So they do have the ability to score pretty quickly and can make stops when need be. But the Wildcats have been susceptible to giving up the big play. They haven't been the teams that have tried it the last couple of weeks haven't necessarily been successful on paper, but they've been able to get past some of our cornerbacks and safeties and let some guys get behind them. So you want to make sure you're shoring that up. But saying that, I do like our matchups with the way that Quinn Marbury's been playing and obviously what we've seen with Calhoun. So I really like the secondary matchup. If it comes at man-to-man is something that we're capable of doing if need be. But I think it really boils down to what our front four is able to do if we're able to get pressure with them without having to blitz. So that'll be a big day for your senior and gosh, I just forgot who I was about to say. Jeez. Well,
the beauty of live
Cooper
television.
Spears, guys.
Cooper Spears.
Cooper Spears, somebody who on the interior will have to be someone who's able to really get and make some noise, and then also what you're seeing with Spike on the outside. So I think those two really will have to dictate what happens on the back end.
Well, and I think that's true that if Myers for Pike Road gets too much time where he can just kind of dictate wherever he wants to throw the ball, that's obviously going to put us behind the eight ball very quickly if we aren't able to get some pressure back to him very quickly, I think, early on.
Yeah, and, we've faced some very athletic quarterbacks, some guys who can move around the pocket. I don't think we'll see anybody as talented as what we saw maybe last week or even against Valley's quarterback. I thought was the most athletic we've seen of anyone. So I think we've seen the best that we're going to see from that aspect. So now it comes down to reading your keys and making plays. And I think from a secondary standpoint, again, we're able to play zone or man, which is great when you're able to be diverse on your defensive schemes. But I mentioned a player earlier who's really emerged and really has become a go-to guy defensively and a leader, which is Noah Long, and he's probably averaged 10 to 12 tackles over the last 4 or 5 weeks. And his emergence defensively has really also translated to the success of what we're seeing defensively. So for me, I'm not as concerned about the points or let me rephrase, giving up a lot of yards. I will give up points. I'm not worried about that. But in between the 20s,
right,
I'm okay with that. Just what can you do when you get down into the red zone and being able to make stops there, and that's really where the Wildcats have been able to play some of their best ball.
Well, I was going to say, I think Benjamin Russell, especially defensively, has shown that it can come up with a really big play when it needs it, whether it be an interception or a fourth down conversion or a goal line stop or something like that. I think that they do come up big in those types of situations. But like you said, I mean, it can't either. I don't think the score can get too big either way. If either team's going to stay in it.
Yeah.
I don't see someone coming back from a 17-0 deficit tonight.
Yeah, I think it's a lot different now. I think, at this stage, everybody who's here is a good team. So, not to say that Spanish Fort wasn't, but I think Pike Road is now has shown that they have the ability to make those types of comebacks, and that gives them that confidence. But you don't want to be in the third round down 17 again and try to make a comeback, and that goes for either one of us, really. We've had to do that. Watkins have had to do that against Briarwood and some other teams, and so you don't want to have to go that route.
Right.
But, again, I think it really boils down from an offensive standpoint. One, can we establish a run? If T.J. Wilson is able to get things going early, I think that sets the tempo and sets the tone for everybody else, gets your offensive line engaged, and it gets guys like Shadari Morgan, who's really been an outstanding blocker, something he doesn't get a lot of credit for or enough credit for me, I think. But he's been someone. Oh, there we go. No accident there. Had a football there. We'll catch it during the break. But the way that he's been able to do things and setting the perimeter has really allowed TJ to become one of the better running backs in 6A and from a yardage standpoint and what he's been able to do. So very excited to see what we're able to do with him tonight. Opens up some play action opportunities and get some one-on-one matchups with our skill guys.
And that feels like it's been the key for Benjamin Russell for years, right? Is trying to find that running back that's really gonna be the go-to guy, the guy that can take get the 40 yards, but also bust out the 25 yards when need be. That kind of, they've needed that for so long. So, on that note, we've got a football that just came into our vicinity. So we're going to take a quick break here from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Hey Tallapoosa County, my name is Samantha Himes. I'm the new Audience Development Manager at Tallapoosa Publishers. At its core, my job is to help the community access the local news, whether that's in print, online, or this great live stream you're watching now. I believe that being aware of what's happening in your area is vital to a thriving and healthy community, our community. Newspapers serve as unbiased sources of information that you as citizens can use to demand change when it's needed, celebrate milestones and victories, and even mourn and heal as a community when tragedy strikes. The newspaper tells your story, your community's story, and gives us all the tools to write the next chapter. Subscribing means you don't miss a thing. So stay informed, get involved, and make your story a great story. You can give me a call at 256-234-4281. Email me at samantha.himes@alexcityoutlook.com, or you can go online at www.alexcityoutlook.com to subscribe. Thanks.
Welcome back to Inside the Lines Live. I'm Lizzie Arbogast-Gwynn, Managing Editor at Tallapoosa Publishers, alongside Scott Hardy. What is your title these days?
Husband and father.
That was good. That was good. I meant the long one at CAC.
Director of Institutional Advancement, Government Affairs, and Public Relations. So just whatever anybody
at
tells
Central
me to
Alabama
do.
Community College, the longest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Scott. No, but we are here for Benjamin Russell football game against Pike Road, quarterfinal matchup. We do want to thank our sponsors for bringing us to you guys tonight. Tanology, SNS Discount Tire Pros, Vice Motors, Chick-fil-A of Alexander City, as well as Marsha Mason, attorney at law. We are excited to be back to bring you guys Inside the Lines Live ahead of the Benjamin Russell game. Obviously, no matter what happens tonight, I think it's a big deal for this town and for this program. I mean, we've been talking since I got here in 2017. We've been talking about the Benjamin Russell tradition and, how the Benjamin Russell program is on this pedestal. And we're one of the most winningest programs in, Alabama football history, high school football history. And I think this kind of reminds everybody of that. It reminds the town, reminds people like me who weren't here back then, it reminds the kids who weren't alive back then of what it really means to be, part of this program.
These type of seasons, what made me become a Wildcat. I mean, I grew up, we see a bunch of kids out here playing football, and that's what we did. We'd come to the games and we'd hang out, but we were watching. We knew all of the numbers, we knew all that, and it appears like that's starting to translate now to a lot of the younger kids. They know who Gabe is, they know who Cooper is, they know Chris Foster, they know Malcolm, they know Jai, they know Noah.
Yeah.
And so they've gotten more engaged, and so that matters for the building of a program, because if you don't have youth involvement or some people that want to actually play, then that prevents you from building the type of program that we all grew up watching, especially people my age and a little bit older. But Wildcats, again, have an opportunity tonight to do something they've only done three other times in school history, and 4 other times. So for me, I couldn't be more excited about where we are as a program. Took over as quarterback club president. I do like to mention this, but my first 3 years, I had 3 different coaches.
Yeah.
So I had Kevin Smith, I had Aubrey Blackwell, then I had Speedy last year. And so for this senior class, this is the first time that they've had a coach who was there the next season. So that plays a major part as well. So I think that, again, from a community standpoint, I talk about it all the time, the success of sports usually translates to the momentum of a community too. It seems like it wouldn't, but when people are excited about being a community, that matters. And so, excuse me, people are starting to come in now, and still 30 minutes to go from kickoff, but I've seen a lot of people, former players from the 2001 championship team say, I'm going to be there, and I think these boys and the staff appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to also, like you mentioned, it's not just necessarily the football team winning, but it's just the being out here and being, having wholesome fun, right? Like there isn't a lot of wholesome fun, and you watch these kids throwing the ball to each other on a Friday night. It's like you'd rather than be here and having a good time than God knows where else. So, but I think it's just a fun thing for the community to get behind. And so if you aren't out here, you got 33 minutes to get here. So come on out and support. I do think it's going to be a good game. I mean, I think, like you said, there's no slouches, there's no easy outs at this point in the season. So I think before we end, obviously we want to do some score predictions.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to say this again before we give the predictions, how fortunate we are to have someone like Coach Ryder here who's provided some stability to the program.
Yes.
I think that's what's been missing. And so I was talking to my uncle earlier today, Coach Freeman, and he was saying, I would expect next year the numbers to be even higher. So that's what starts to happen. When you start having some success, it's not necessarily about winning a state championship. That's fantastic, and we all want to do that. But making deep runs, he's gone 8-2 in the regular season, back-to-back years. Now in the quarterfinals, back-to-back playoff appearances for the first time in probably 8 years.
Yeah.
So this is what you want from a head coach. And so I think that we're very, very fortunate to have someone like him. So I did want to say that before we move in. But you did ask for a prediction. I would like for you to lead off. I don't want to give my...
All right, I'm going to lead off. I think it's going to be a shootout, and I think Benjamin Russell is going to win 41-37.
41-37. All right. I had 41 in my score I gave you a little bit a while ago, but it was a little further out for Pike Road. So I'm going to say, sorry guys.
Their football
I'm going
game
to say 41-23 Wildcats. I think that they come out and jump out ahead early, and they don't do what Spanish Fork did last week and let them come back in the game. I think they keep their foot on the gas, and they're able to put together a game and type of performance that gets them to the semis.
I think it's key that they saw that performance, though, that it doesn't matter if you're up 17-0, right? Keep your pedal, your foot on the gas the whole time, keep the pedal to the metal, and keep going. But I do think that we'll get a Benjamin Russell win. We hope. We once again want to shout out to our sponsors: Tanology, S&S Discount Tire Pros, Bice Motors, Chick-fil-A of Alexander City, as well as Marshall's T. Mason. I appreciate you coming out here and doing this with me again. The Dream Team is back, and the Dream Team's behind us. So we're excited to go, and we'll keep you guys posted as to how it goes. So thanks for joining us. Again, for Scott Hardy, I'm Lizzie Arbogast Gwynn of Tallapoosa Publishers. This has been Inside the Lines Live.